Welcome back to A Smarter Way to Homeschool. This is our next session entitled A Smarter Way to Learn Spanish. I am Jessica McCullough, the Customer Experience Manager here at Masterbooks, and I'm excited to have Arja Regier here with me today. Arja is the instructor of our brand new Beginning Spanish for Families course found at masterbooksacademy.com. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Arja.
Hola, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me.
Will you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yes, I would love to. So I was raised in northern Minnesota, which you can imagine at that point had very few native speakers. It was mostly live animals and mosquitoes who don't speak Spanish. So I was first introduced to Spanish in third grade with an after-school program. And that program culminated in a play, Three Little Pigs, and I was one of the pigs. At that point, I was very shy. So it was completely embarrassing for me to be a part of this play, but I was curious about Spanish. So that kind of just paused it until I was 15 and I lived with a family friends in Mexico, a Mexican family, for us part of a summer. And that is when my passion for Spanish was really ignited because it was connected to people and a culture. And so that is the start of my own Spanish language journey, really. That really kicked off when I was 15. That was a really incredible experience. So since then, after that, I went to college and I studied education and Spanish. I've known since I was born that I wanted to be a teacher. And the Spanish is what just kind of came along the way. At the end of my college experience, I was invited to be an adjunct professor for a couple of years. And that was really incredible experience to work alongside people who were trained in teaching Spanish. And that opened the door and an interest in pursuing a master's degree in Spanish linguistics with a focus in second language acquisition. So it was really cool. I was awarded a fellowship to research and study with a professor at UT, specifically studying how students acquire a second language, and in this case, Spanish. So that was it was fascinating. But I realized that studying it in the context for just for linguistic sake was interesting to me, and it fed the cognitive part, but I really like applying it. What does that mean in a language learning setting? What does that mean for pedagogy and for teaching? And so after finishing my master's degree, I got a job at a high school, and then I worked on a program there and started to develop a middle school program. And I can fast forward, ended up staying home. I had 4 kids, staying home with my kids and tutoring on the side. I was presented with the opportunity to start a preschool program, develop a program for Spanish for the preschool age, which was a unique challenge because I'd never dealt with learners who didn't know how to read or write. That was really fun. And then from there, was presented with the opportunity to start an elementary program. And along the way, I've tutored and taught adults. So I really have worked with students from ages 2 all the way through adult.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which is, it's been really exciting. It's exciting to work with different ages and kind of figure out what does that learner need and how can I get that learner in that setting to learn Spanish, but also realizing along the way there wasn't curriculum that really fit what I wanted. And so I developed the curriculum for all those different levels along the way to meet the needs of the learner and also applying what I had studied in graduate school. So how do learners learn a second language? And then what do I need to create to deliver that to them? So it's been it's exciting. I have an intellectual curiosity with linguistics and some of the aspects, but I'm most passionate about how to take that research and how it can inform pedagogy. So the practical application of the theory that I studied in graduate school and how to make learning a language more effective. That is really what I'm passionate about. Because we want to be able to use it. At the end of the day, we want our Spanish to be something that actually works. And when it works, the learner is motivated to continue studying it because they can communicate with someone else and it's not separate from a real life situation. So
absolutely.
That's my journey as a teacher. It's been really exciting. So it's been really fun in this setting now to develop a course, a new challenge, I guess. I'm excited about the challenge of how do I take all that I've learned in experience as a teacher and also in research as a graduate student, and how do I apply it to a setting where there is not live feedback. So there isn't live feedback with the learner like through the academy. And I'm really excited about how it turned out. I think I think it's really effective. I think it's been an exciting challenge, but I'm really excited with the way it's come together.
So maybe you can share a little bit with us. You talked a little bit about this, about why you're passionate, but why are you passionate to teach Spanish to others? You kind of talked about why you're passionate about Spanish, but why do you want to see others be able to understand Spanish and speak Spanish?
Yes, that's a great question. So I kind of talked about it briefly, but for me, Spanish isn't purely linguistic, it's actually relational. So I see Spanish as a bridge that connects us to a new community of people. It's how people connect, through speaking with each other. And really, to me, life is about connections and relationships. So I love that knowing Spanish connects me to a whole new people group. People that I can know their stories, and there's sarcasm and wit and sadness and joy. So to me, Spanish really is the means to a different end, and that is connecting us to other people. And through those people, it's a key to a new perspective and new cultures. So because of that, it can be a means of sharing God's love and participating in his creation. And we can learn more about God and his presence around the world. So really, to me, it is the means to a different end, and the end is people. So as a teacher, sometimes it connects me to my students. In this case, I think I even build a bridge to the students on the other side of the video. It can be a bridge between connecting people within the family that they take the course together, and then, of course, within your community and with the world at large. So to me, it's relationally based.
That makes total sense. And I can see like your passion coming through as you're talking about that.
Yeah.
So how can we teach a second language, such as Spanish, with the fear of the Lord as the foundation of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's not really dichotomized. It's not separate. It's all mixed together. So God is the creator of all languages, right? So when we study Spanish, we actually get to know him and his character better. And then it also connects us to his creation, his people. So I don't really think, if you are a follower of Jesus, I don't think it can be separated. It's a part of who you are as a Spanish speaker, and then who the people that you're speaking with and the learners. So I think that they're just interrelated, that recognizing that, he is the author of and creator of language. He gives us imagination, and he gives us our personalities that we can express in a variety of languages, English, Spanish, etc. And then also that it connects us to his people. And so we can be a part of God's family worldwide when we know Spanish. Spanish is spoken I believe it's the most widespread of the languages. So it doesn't have the highest number of speakers, but it is the official language of 21 countries. And it's, let's see, how do I say this? It's one of the languages of, I think, 34. So it connects us, by learning Spanish, it connects us to his creation across the globe, which is really, really amazing.
Yeah, that's really exciting to think about, that we can use a second language as a way to connect with the body of Christ around the world, and then to even come alongside other Christians around the world to advance God's kingdom. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is, even for me personally, in my relationship with Christ, when I read the Bible in Spanish, there are verses that I am so familiar with in English that have new meaning when I read them in Spanish, because there's certain limitations that come with English. We have one verb to know. Spanish has two verbs. It has head knowledge and experiential knowledge. And so when I read verses about knowing the Lord, it opens up what I have always heard growing up, being raised in a Christian home, by just even reading the Bible in Spanish. So I think it grows our worldview, our perspective, our understanding of God, our ability to connect with people. Obviously, I feel pretty passionately about it.
Yeah. And it makes me feel like, oh, I need to do this, and I need to do this with my kids. So on that note, the title of this course says that it's for families to be using. Can you tell us exactly what you mean by that? What ages is this really geared toward?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the idea of this course. I don't think there's a lot out there. It started with the idea of my passion for students learning Spanish. So, for a homeschool family or an after school program, how does a parent teach content that they know nothing about? That's kind of overwhelming, also, maybe impossible. Um, and so, the idea is that the family takes the course together. So the content is geared probably more toward elementary or low middle school, but the interactive tone, it really could be it could be used by anyone in the entire family, parents, children, grandma. In fact, one of some of my lessons, my mom is a part of it, and it was really really amazing because she doesn't speak any Spanish. Um, it was really fun for her to learn, but also it was such a bonding experience for her to do it with my kids and with me. And that's what one of the unique things about this course, I think, that you're not just learning something academic that's separate from the rest of your family, but learning a language is relationally oriented. So when you're doing this with your family, you're building community even within your own family. And that enhances the learning. It enhances the ability to practice, interact, but also it's fun. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. I did create, so the video lessons are geared for the entire family to watch together. And then I created ample PDFs, and those have a wide range to appeal to different ages of learners, different nature of learners, learning styles. And so all of that content is, it's just an option for parents. There's something for first grader, second grader, and also something to reinforce what's in the video lessons for an older learner like a fifth grader or a sixth grader. So I'm really excited. It's been a really fun experience for me and my family, and I'm excited for everyone else to get the opportunity to try it out.
Absolutely. That, I mean, it's really exciting to think about, just like you said, being that homeschool mom who doesn't speak Spanish, doesn't know Spanish. And so it's overwhelming for me to try to think, how am I supposed to teach my kids Spanish when I don't know it, you know?
Yes.
And so this
Yes.
bringing the parents in to use
Yes.
it alongside with the kids and to learn together brings a whole new dynamic to it
Yes.
and just allows for a very usable experience for a homeschool family for sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun. It's always fun to do something where parents and students and their children are. It's an equalizer. So when you're learning together, it's kind of fun because maybe dad tries to say a word and he flubs it with his mouth, but that's a really fun experience that, again, like my kids had with my mom or they've had with me, where they're helping teach grandma, and usually their relationship is the opposite, right? They're learning
Yeah.
a lot from their grandma. So
Yeah.
it's a really fun kind of equalizer and a fun community building experience within the family. Yeah.
Awesome. I know that you are a homeschool mom. And so does your experience as a homeschooling mom impact the way that you structured the course to function?
Yeah. So I have absolutely is the answer. I have 4 kids. They're about 2 years apart. And they are all different. They're different ages. They're different types of learners. They're different levels of motivation. Some are really self motivated, some are not. Um, and so I know as a mom and a teacher that not one methodology works for every single student. So my approach and really the components of this was to make it work for a variety of learners. So different activities so that all are engaged and motivated within the same course. So absolutely, yeah, it's a great test group within my own family and the variety of my own children. And yeah, the way they learn, the levels of Spanish that they already know, which are not the same. That played a big role in how I designed the course. Definitely.
Great. What is required of families using this course as far as how much time should they expect to be dedicating toward the usage of the course itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's set up that there are 2 videos per week. The videos are 10 to 20 minutes in length. So you're committing to 20 to 45 minutes of the videos. And the videos aren't just a matter of hitting play and then sitting back and eating your popcorn while you watch me teach you a lesson. Um, it's actively engaging in the videos, which is amazing because so there's the video portion and then there are the documents to use afterwards. It's really important to me that families know that I provided so many enrichment activities to promote learning and practice, but they are optional. I don't want them to be overwhelming or burdensome. By just watching the videos and actively participating, you can learn Spanish. So the minimum commitment is watching the videos. And then based on students' interests, or what the mom and dad, the teachers want, there's lots of opportunity to practice in the context of games, neighborhood surveys. There's a lot there. But again, that's all just enhancement for reinforcement. It should not be burdensome. Again,
Okay.
just watching and participating in videos, you will learn a lot of Spanish. Yes.
And I would imagine if the parents are watching along with the kids, the parents kind of modeling that participation with the videos will go a long way for students, younger students, also feeling comfortable to participate and interact with those
With the
videos as
screen,
well.
with me on the screen. Yeah.
Yes,
I
exactly.
promise I'm really nice. Don't be afraid.
Can you explain why you chose to create this program as an immersion program? I know with your background, you have a lot of experience with, the best ways to teach different things. So why is this immersion a smarter way to teach and to learn Spanish?
Gosh, this is an area I feel very strongly about. So as I said before, there's these researchers that have gone before us, Stephen Krashen, Bill Van Patten, Rod Ellis. There's a lot more that have studied how people acquire a second language. And what we've learned is that it's in context. It's not separated from meaning, and it's content-based. So if you think about how many people do you know studied a language in high school? They took it for 4 years or maybe even in college, and they say, I can't speak it at all. And that's because when language teaching first emerged, it was the audiolingual method, which was very rote. If we memorized it and we drilled it enough and we said it over and over, we would acquire language. And what research has shown us is that, in fact, that's actually not how we acquire language. And so all the research that I read about and studied in my courses in graduate school, again, have this pedagogical implications in that, hey, let's tailor what we know now in teaching an effective way for people to learn Spanish so they can actually use it. They can understand it and they can use it. So I want to highlight a few areas. I talked a little bit about explicit versus implicit, and that's that audiolingual method of saying, let's learn the rules. Let's talk about the language, the form. Let's focus very consciously on things like grammar and verb endings and memorizing lists. But it's not really conversational. It's not communicative, right? So that's explicit language. And now we know that language is best learned implicitly. And that is that it's communication-based activities. That's how we learn our first language. And in fact, that's also how we learn a second language. So it's observing it in context and then practicing it. And it's actually task-oriented. Instead of doing language for language's sake, I'm going to use a language to ask, what's your favorite one? What do you like more? Where do you live? And so really, regardless of age or context, that's what we know about it. So I want to talk about explicit versus implicit. So again, that's kind of how we all used to learn, is that we decided, let's just memorize and talk about verb endings. But then we kind of go, how come I studied all these years and I can't actually use it? The second key to this with implicit learning is comprehensible input. And that's where these videos come in. So the idea is that I want to provide input that's comprehensible. So if you're getting data, information about the language, right? Communication, but you can comprehend it. So if you can't understand it, it's just noise, right? It's just like, I can't pick up any of it. It's just blah, 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 blah. But if it's comprehensible, the idea is that it's embedded in a communicative event and learners can decode, oh, I know what the purpose of this communication is. So I'm using a lot of linguistics, but there's so much research that backs this up that by providing comprehensible input, so just a little bit above, you can actually acquire the language. So the way you make it comprehensible is facial gestures. If I go like this, I'm talking about being sad. I can use props, cues. I can link to prior knowledge, like a banana's yellow, right? And so these are all the ways that the language becomes comprehensible, but sticking mostly in the target language. So again, I'm providing a lot of input, but the input isn't just, but I'm saying, hey, you know what I'm talking about because look at my face. Look at what I'm holding up. You know that Valentine's Day is February 14th. You see? So these are all the things that link to what you already know in English that make it comprehensible. So another piece of it that I think is really important is that I give opportunities for output. So there is opportunities to practice, which we need. You are going to react authentically to exchanges, yes or no questions, thumbs up, thumb down, retelling, choral reading. These are also ways for you to practice it. But studies actually show that the biggest indicator of language acquisition is input that you can understand. So comprehensible input. And studies also show that it's still authentic, even if it's simplified. So for me to take authentic language, and simplify it for a beginner learner, it's still authentic language. So I'm throwing a lot at you. But the other part of this approach that I really feel passionately about is that by doing mostly target language, so I speak mostly in Spanish, it allows for maximum input. So if I just said to you, Jessica, I'm going to tell you how to say red. Red is rojo. Can you say red? Rojo. Repeat after me. Rojo. You'd say, okay, great. Now I learned that red is rojo. But if I teach you in context, una manzana, and I have a picture of an apple, normalmente es de color rojo, then you're not only getting red, but if you're ready, there's natural differentiation that occurs that you're also learning fruits. Now the goal of the unit is the colors, but you're actually learning there's so much secondary extra language that can be picked up, which is exciting, but also really works for a family, so that depending on the kind of learner, the learner will get the most basics. She wants us to learn about colors. And then if someone's ready for more, they're like, ooh, I also picked up this phrase, and I picked up fruits, and I picked up activities that weren't the key communicative goals for the unit. So there's that natural differentiation in secondary language that occurs. The last part, which I feel really passionately about, is motivation. So have all these studies about the linguistic aspect, how the brain acquires a language. But what's really interesting is these studies also talk about key components of motivation. If students aren't motivated, it doesn't really matter what approach we use. If students aren't engaged, they're not going to be interested. So there's also a lot in the field of linguistics that talks about having input that is interesting or compelling to the learner. So I could use this approach, and we could talk about parts of an insect, but if that's not compelling or interesting, they're not going to be motivated and engaged to want to learn it. So that's where the content really comes in as well, to say, let's pick things that are relevant to their life that they want to talk about. So the content is real basic because this is a beginner level. We're starting to develop novice level proficiency. But it's still relevant. Because everybody wants to talk about what's your favorite color, what's, expressing your opinion. What do you like to do on the weekends? Those kind of topics. So I think that another key component of this is student engagement and motivation. And that is how students want to learn. So trying to ignite that curiosity and passion through video lessons. I think that is also done with this whole approach. So it's multifaceted. I've said a lot, but I think the hope is that students learn Spanish and they're enthusiastic to participate, and then confident to try it out, because they need to be able to take risks to make new sounds with their mouths and be comfortable with the fact that they're not going to say it perfectly, and that's okay. We want to try it and have the confidence to start to use it. So I also incorporate humor. I think it's really fun because I've learned in my experience that it lowers the affective filter, which researchers also talk about. When you're stressed or you're nervous, you're also it's not as optimal for learning. But by lowering your affective filter, maybe you're laughing, that reduces your stress and then increases your engagement, your motivation. So I feel really strongly. I think it's a really effective approach to learn Spanish. I'm excited about it. Did that answer your question? That was a lot of information.
Yes, it was really great. And as you're talking, I'm like connecting so many dots myself, because I was thinking about, well, this makes sense. Like, it makes common sense, right? When our children are born, they learn language. Just like you said, the first language we learn is through this method. This is how we learn. And they are receiving input for so long before there's ever any output expected, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's years before they're actually expected to output any information. And then I was thinking about when I was a teenager, some of my really good friends in their household, they spoke essentially only Spanish because their dad was only Spanish speaking. And I was there a lot of the time, and I could not speak Spanish, but because I spent so much time there, I started to understand what they were talking about. Now, I wouldn't be able to say what they said clearly in English and, and translate it. It wasn't like that. And I didn't really communicate in Spanish with them, but I could pick up on what the conversation was about. And that was simply because I would be interested, because this is my friend's family and they're having a conversation and I'm in the room. So I had a motivation for wanting to understand what they were talking about. And just from that constant input, I was able to start understanding that. So I thought what
And
you
you
said,
took all the extra lingual cues. That's what the videos hopefully
yes,
provide, all these extra lingual to help it. So, okay, what the gist of what is going on.
yes. So all of that would just make so much sense to me as you were explaining all of that. So kind of switching gears just slightly here, how were you able to really weave the gospel message in when creating this Spanish course?
So I think that's a great question. One of the things that I'm really excited about is that we start every lesson with a prayer in Spanish. It's a very basic prayer, but 70 times we say, we thank God for a brand new day. We thank God for our families. And I think that's a really powerful way to start. And it's really amazing that we can talk to God in English and in Spanish. And then there's a lot of ways that the spiritual aspects are just naturally woven in. For example, we talk about colors and God's keeping his promises with the rainbow, right? When we talk about family, we can talk about how we have our immediate family, but we also have our spiritual family. I'm about to sneeze. Nope, it's gone. And then when we talk about addressing God, again, Spanish has two different U's, an informal and a formal. In English, we don't have that. But how in the Bible, you'll see that we address God with an informal you, which just, we learn more about him, that he wants to know us and be close with us. He doesn't want us to have this, the distance. I also think at learning Spanish, we're learning to talk and we're learning to listen. And I talk about that throughout the course, that active listening, with humans and with God. That's how we participate in other cultures. And it enlarges the way we see the world. So, I think that it can't be separated, because all of these things are used to grow God's kingdom, through relationship with others, through asking questions and listening, and through relationship with him. So it's woven in throughout all of it. But I think my favorite part is the idea that we started off with a prayer, and the prayer is a formula that you really could add in other things you want to thank him for. But I think it's a really neat tone that is set at the beginning of every lesson.
That's awesome. And so true that really our faith is in God's in everything, in every aspect of our lives. And so when we're learning something like Spanish, God isn't removed from that. He's a part of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of as a wrap up for today, if you were to explain beginning Spanish for families in just a few sentences, how would you do that?
Yeah. So I would say it's an interactive and engaging course for the whole family. It helps develop novice-like proficiency. So we're just beginning off in Spanish, and it's designed to foster authentic communication. Communication you can use about relevant topics, with a purpose and appropriately. So it also is a course where you'll gain cultural understanding that is authentic and beyond stereotypes, with the goal ultimately of furthering God's kingdom. So the course brings together the three things that I love: teaching, Spanish, and Jesus. So teaching is really the means to students. It's not really the content. It's the meaning. It's the means to students. So I'm really excited about it. I want to say something to the families, that I think that they'll be able to trust the process, but I want the message to say to trust the process. I think it's going to be enjoyable and effective, but I think what's amazing is students can take something and say, I really like it, or I'm learning, or I'm not learning, but I want to assure them that there's a pedagogical reason behind every single activity that I created during the video, after the video lessons. There is meaning and purpose to everything that I've done. So students don't need to know it, but I want parents to know that I have a pedagogical approach for all of it, with, again, the goal of them learning Spanish authentically, and being able to use it. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, you definitely can tell and hear your passion as you're talking, and all of what you said like just makes so much sense logically as as I was processing through the different things you were saying. I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why, I learned a foreign language in high school, like you said, and it was like, yeah, I don't have it anymore.
Yeah, well, and I think
You know?
sometimes, so what can happen with this approach is that students forget they're learning. We're actually talking about something else. We're talking about, oh gosh, what color is that lemonade going to become when she spins the wheel? That you almost forget that you're learning Spanish along the way. I had a really fun experience a while back where I had the assistant principal. It was her grandson who was in my course, and she said, "Arya, I have the highest compliment for you." When I asked him, tell me about Spanish, and he said, "Oh, I love it. We're not learning that much, but I love it." And she said, "That is the biggest compliment. You've tricked him into learning. He doesn't even realize how much Spanish he's learning." But I believe strongly that this method works. So I think that my own passion for the language will come through with the course, my enjoyment, like that I'm really having fun, and I'm hoping that passion is contagious for the learners. And I think that I build a connection through the videos with the learners on the other side. So I'm excited about it. I hope the people catch the enthusiasm.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today. We appreciate that. And for all of you that have joined us for this session, if you would like to check out Beginning Spanish for Families, you can look at it at masterbooksacademy.com.
Thank you, Jessica, for having me.